I'm totally excited to dive into this today with my guest, James. James has been an investor for the past 3 years in this California real estate market, an investor agent, and he has 12 deals under his belt. That's right, in this California crazy real estate market that people say you can't invest in, he's got 12 deals, 9 buy and holds, and 3 flips. And we're going to dive into a handful of those deals. We're going to dive into the numbers. He even bought a Fourplex with zero money down and walked away from closing with money in his pocket. You're going to love some of the stories and examples we go through. Let's dive in right now. James, thanks so much for joining us. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well, Alan. First off, I want to say thank you for having me. I'm super excited to kind of dive deep into my journey and to tell everyone, my experiences, and they can see for themselves that it's possible to do. So super excited to talk to you. Super excited for this episode. And yeah.
Absolutely. And what's cool is you're kind of like newer in this industry. You've been doing this for almost 3 years now.
Yes.
And so we get to kind of hear your journey of how you got started and some of the ups and downs as you went.
Right.
But why don't you start us first with some of why you got into real estate, how you got into real estate?
Sure. It started off kind of in 2019 when I was in deployment. I was a Marine at the time. And I started to really wonder, I'm going to get out. What am I going to do? And started researching about different avenues or vehicles of, trying to just had my parameters of being able to work for myself, having that free time, and just not having to worry about it. Not having to worry about, having someone on top of me I just wanted to control my time. And I just wanted to see okay, what, different vehicles and avenues can I do that with? Tried doing stocks, learning about stocks and crypto. Didn't work well. I mean, obviously, right? So, and then next thing was real estate. To kind of started doing my research and got to Bigger Pockets or video. And they started talking about rental properties and how it can change kind of the trajectory of your life and all that stuff. And I was like, okay, this sounds like something I could do where it's passive. I get to be my own boss. And I just get to be creative and have fun with it. The problem with stocks is it's not tangible. Like real estate, something you can hold and touch and see. And you have so much control over real estate, right? You control how much you make as opposed to stocks where, one bad news can tank a stock. So real estate, really honing in on it. And beginning of 2020, I started to really put into play my research and, all the education that I learned and started, trying to buy a house, doing the interviewing agents, lenders and stuff like that. And we ended up getting an escrow with another property. It was a single family with an ADU, but there was an appraisal shortfall. So that kind of, and we were right there. We were right there at the closing table and it just fell through. So I quit. I was like, you know what? Real estate's not for me. I just lost a bunch of money. Meaning, $1,500, but still I didn't get a house. I was like, okay, this isn't for me. I tried. It's not going well, right? So I took like a month and a half hiatus. And at that point, something clicked in my mind. I was like, okay, why did I just give up so easily? Some adversity, and I just shut down and gave up. So I was like, okay, I'm not doing that to myself, not doing that to my family. I'm not doing that to my future self. So I was like, okay, I'm going to try it at it one more time, interviewed again, vetted a whole new team, new agent, new lender, and ended up getting an under escrow, a couple months later on a Fourplex. And I know we're going to go over that, but that was the first property I got was a Fourplex. And that kind of just jump-started my real estate career. After my first property, fell in love with the whole process, fell in love with finding the deal, the hunt, and numbers and all that stuff. And then now kind of ballooned up, scaled up to with that one property. And just to think about it, I almost quit and, never looked back, but kind of kept going. And now here we are.
Yeah. Yeah. I love it. Love it. So you overcame that initial challenge, those hurdles going into it. And you also, before we dive into those numbers, because I want to get the numbers on that Fourplex, you then got your real estate license as well, right?
I did. Yes.
So tell me about that. Tell me about that journey to deciding to get your real estate license and what that was like.
Sure. Yeah. So I'm not sure what what people know, but as an investor, it's really hard to kind of come up with money and to kind of just be around real estate if you don't have any money, or not really knowing too much about like creative financing and stuff like that. So I was trying to figure out, while before I got out, okay, I have a fourplex, we're buying another property. What can I do to kind of stay around real estate and also help people get reach their full potential in real estate? So what I was started thinking, and this kind of goes to my niche, is helping service members with their utilize their VA loan, do something like I did with buy a fourplex with a VA loan. So
Right.
that's kind of like my journey, my transition to being from an investor to having the mindset of becoming a realtor, because I
Right.
just wanted to help the service members utilize their VA loan, just like I did, as well as stay connected within real estate, because I fell in love with real estate so much that I was like, I have to be around it. And what better way to be around it, than being a realtor, where you get to see the day to day activities and talk with
Totally.
clients. And there's no better way to kind of experience something than to teach it, right? It's kind of like a two-way street, right? The more you
Yeah.
teach it, the more you learn as well. So the more I teach
Yeah.
my clients how to use the VA loan and how to talk about real estate, how to do numbers, the more I get to learn as well. So that's kind of
Yeah.
like why I transitioned over to, or not necessarily transition, but adding on to my repertoire of being an investor and a realtor.
Yeah, I tell people there's a lot of advantages as an investor to have your real estate license. There's some disadvantages too. I'll
Right.
hit a couple right now. I mean, the big advantage is one that you just mentioned is you're going to learn a ton, right? Because you're going to be in real estate both as an agent and as an investor. You're
Right.
going to be just in real estate all the time, around it, around the people doing it, and learning and hopefully making money to learn, right? Doing
Mm-hmm.
it. And disadvantage could be that there's a little bit more legal things that you have to, as a real estate agent and as having a license that's regulated by the state, you have to follow certain guidelines and paperwork and disclosures and disclose to everyone you're a real estate agent. So there's certain
Mm-hmm.
things you have to do that can add a layer of maybe further complexity.
Right.
So it's not for everyone, but it is a huge advantage. It's part of my story too, right?
Yeah.
So I really love that, and I love that your heart was to lead with serving. So you had a community which were veterans, military, which is your story, and
Mm-hmm.
you wanted to serve and help them get into real estate and be able to take advantage of real estate
Right.
and grow with that. And that's really cool.
Military and service members, as we'll go over, they get taken advantage of, right? Especially if they're buying their first
Mm,
house, or they don't know anything about real estate. They really get taken advantage of, and just for anything with just service members, because they get such a stable paycheck. In the
right.
first and the 15th, that people are like, okay, they're a walking bank, but and that's kind of what happened to me in regards to my first deal with getting a fourplex. It just, my experiences weren't that pleasant,
Yeah.
and I was like, okay, I could do better. I can become an advocate way better than what my agent was at the time was doing for me. I could do that with
Right.
other service members. So if you can't,
Right.
if you there's no one better than just do it yourself kind of thing.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. So then tell me a little bit about your brokerage journey. You started with a brokerage now, and you went through another one, and now you're with my group in EXP. But tell me a little bit about that journey. Maybe someone who's thinking about getting the license or joining brokerage, or maybe they're part of brokerage right now. What was your experience?
sure, yeah. So my 6 months prior to leaving the military, there's something called skill bridge, where you essentially, before you transition to the civilian sector, you, for that last 6 months, you essentially intern for a company of your choosing who will take you on, right? And for me, obviously, I was doing real estate, so I signed up with a brokerage called Century Residential here in San Diego, and they took me in. They were focused on service members as well, and had just good environment. So they took me in for my first few months as a realtor, and then my ex business partner and I was like, okay, we already got kind of the flow of things in a real estate transaction. We know what to do. Let's start our own team, right? And we were recruited by Compass, and they were going to give us this whole startup fee or startup kind of funds to build our own team. And we were like, okay, let's do Compass, let's start our own team, and kind of go from there. Well, I was there for about a year, or a little less than a year, when at the time Alan's assistant, called me to try to you called me to recruit me to EXP.
Yeah.
And the thing with Compass, great company. The thing is, it wasn't conducive to where I want to be at as an investor.
Sure.
Compass was more of a luxury, like they were focused more on listings and luxury and things like that. Well, I was focused on, investors. Like I wanted to invest. That's what I was passionate in. So you reached out to me. You were like, okay, hey, I'm going to mentor you, not only being a realtor, but also investor. I'm an investor as well, 100 plus units. I was like, perfect. That's what the kind of mentor I need, where they've been through that stuff before, right? And I was thinking in my mind, I was like, okay, real EXP kind of checks out my boxes as a realtor, and you check out the boxes as an investor, right? Which I didn't have at Compass nor at Century, right? I wanted someone to not only guide me in being a realtor, but also my end game, which is becoming a full-time investor. And you and EXP gave me that. So that's kind of why I switched over to EXP.
Yeah. No, the mentorship is so powerful, and the collaboration in EXP. And I want to offer that to anyone listening as well, that James and I would offer to mentor you. And that is something that you can reach out to us about. But that is a powerful dynamic. And not to mention, you're going to make more money in EXP than you would at Compass or any of these other places. The splits are so good.
Splits are better.
The company thinks outside the box. You're now an owner in the brokerage. You're getting stock, and all kinds of bonuses related to that. And so it's just such an environment that's a win-win. So yeah, we're stoked to have you. So let's dive into this first transaction. This first transaction you did was a fourplex, and that was in September of 2020, which was a pretty busy market. So tell us about how you found this transaction, and let's break down a few of the numbers on it.
Sure, yeah. So at the time, like I said, I was kind of redoing my whole team, had to interview and vet agents and lenders, and ended up settling on a Compass agent at the time. And he was an investor.
Because you did not have your license.
No, I didn't.
Yet, right?
I didn't. Yeah.
You're operating as an investor. You're interviewing agents.
Right.
You're trying to build a team that's going to help you pull off this first purchase.
Exactly. Okay. Right. So this was September. This was around, I think July 2020. I didn't get my license until June 2021. Yeah. So I started interviewing, and literally, a couple weeks after we talked to my realtor, he was like, hey, I have an off-market opportunity for you. It's a fourplex close by where I live now, right? We went to go check it out, and the numbers made sense. It had pretty good tenants. I still have 3 of the units as tenants in there. Like I inherited those tenants, and they're still there. I love them. They pay, rent, and it was all good. So we just kept them. And yeah, that's kind of how I found a deal. He ended up representing the seller and myself, so it was a dual agency where he represented both sides. So what I would say with that, though, is if you're an investor who don't own any properties yet, or you're trying to buy your first property, I wouldn't necessarily go with a dual agent unless you trust them, unless they're like a friend or a family member, because there were some things where I felt like at the time during the transaction that I was negotiating for myself, right? Because that listing agent, he had a fiduciary duty to the seller first. And he might have a fiduciary duty to the buyer, but it's always going to be the seller first, because essentially the seller is paying him, right? Both sides. So that's kind of one of the lessons I learned on that is, sure, you could do a dual agency, but it's just going to feel like you're by yourself. You're kind of fighting for your own corner rather than having your agent fight for you. So, but I mean, at the end of the day, it still went well. We ended up closing in September, late August. No, it was it was September 1st, September 2nd, 2020. So ended up, what the best part of that is, since we closed in September, 1st or 2nd of 2020, you not only, and we already had the tenants, we inherited the tenants. So not only do you get, the closing credits and all that stuff, but you also get your first 2 months of rent, right? Which was around,
Right.
what was that, like $6,000 a month. So we ended up
Right.
getting around 11, 12 grand before our first mortgage payment. So essentially got
Wow.
paid to buy the fourplex. Yeah.
So yeah, when you're buying that fourplex, you close on the first of the month. You're getting the rent from that whole month, and then your mortgage payment is due at the end of the month, right? So the mortgage really doesn't even show up till the next month,
Right.
and you're getting the rent from that month as well. So wow,
Right,
that's
right, right.
awesome. So
Right.
what was your purchase price and what did your financing look like?
Yes, so we financed this with a VA loan, so VA loan zero down, and that kind of
Wow.
plays into why I love helping service members utilize the VA loan, because there's so much untapped potential that you can utilize with the VA loan. And same goes with FHA and low money conventional, right? 3.5, 5%
Yeah.
down. Same thing. It's so
Yeah.
the money, you don't need that much money to get into something, right? Yeah, but
Right.
ours was definitely a VA loan down, and we bought it for 1.125, right?
Wow. Man, okay, hold on. So we just have to just take this for a moment and make sure everyone heard that you bought a 4 unit
Yeah.
in San Diego with zero down, and you got the first and second month's rent in your pocket, so you
Yeah.
actually got a credit back. You actually got money to buy this thing. You got paid to buy this thing.
Yes.
And you're not a real estate agent. If you were a real estate agent at the time, you would have got a commission too.
Yeah,
So it's
exactly.
just like,
Yes.
oh my gosh,
Yeah.
it's such a cool setup you have going on this first property.
Yeah, so fortunately it was kind of like 2020, like late 2020 was started picking up, but there was a point in 2020 where no one wanted to buy a house. And
Right.
it was technically this time, right? That's why the interest rate was so low. And it was low. We got upfront, we got about 9 grand in closing costs, but throughout the whole escrow and, with inspections, with the request for repairs, we ended up getting an additional 10 grand. And this is why it kind of goes back to the dual agency, because my realtor at the time was like, hey, we're only, let's do 2 grand. And I'm like, no, I want the whole thing, like this is going to cost us about 20 grand to fix of, the issues here. I want at least 10 grand. And he was so
Right.
adamant and giving, only 2 grand or, doing 2-3 grand. And I was like, no, like I want 10 grand. This is how we're going to do it. We're going to pull out. Like you really have to negotiate for yourself, essentially, even though
Right.
he's quote unquote my realtor. So
Right.
ended up getting about, I think it was, I want to say, I want to get the right numbers, but it was around like 18, 19 grand in closing costs or in seller
Right.
credit, which
Yeah.
not only paid for all my closing costs, which is around 15 to 16K, but it also, whatever was left over was utilized towards your debts, right? So that's what the VA loan
Right.
does for you. It goes towards your debts. So ended up paying off my car and some credit card debt. So not only did I, get all my closing costs paid for, my car got paid for and some credit card debt. Plus I got 2 months of rent, right? Which equated to around
Wow.
12 grand.
Right.
So that ended up being my
Yeah.
reserves, that 12, 13 grand that we got. Yeah.
Okay. And then what is your income on the property that you were going for? And where did it go from there basically after the purchase?
Yeah. So when we bought it, it was initially around, it was like 5,600 in rental
Yep.
income. But then we had to move in one of the units, right? So that obviously went lower. But now that we're fully moved out, since we have such a low interest rate of 2.25, and our mortgage is 5,700, with the coin op and the rental income, we're around 7,300. So we're cash flowing about $1,600 a month.
Right.
Positive.
Right.
So
Right. And just in case someone missed that, what you just described, I call bank hacking. And bank hacking is where you took a loan that's an owner occupied loan. You can only get this zero down or these really low percent down loans if you're going to owner occupy the property. And
Right.
you can owner occupy up to 4 units, right? So you went for the maximum.
Oh, yeah.
For 4 units. You owner occupy one of those units. You start, while you're there, you can be working on the property, increasing rents, making it more desirable, and then you eventually moved out of the property. You keep that financing in place, and now the property is going to cash flow and be a long-term asset for you.
Right, that's correct. Yeah, so we did house hack it at first, and then now that we are fully moved out, we are good. Now it's cash flowing, right? So
Right. Yeah.
and we're gonna keep that low interest rate for the life of the loan, right? Or if ever we want to refinance and get it down, and utilize our VA loan again, then we can refinance and then get something around the same interest rate. But I don't think I'm ever gonna refinance out of that. There's never gonna be a time. Well, you kind of want to hope for it, but
Right.
the time where it's low interest rates, that means something's wrong with the economy, right? So it's like, can you hope for the best? Or do you want to hope for like lower interest rate or not? Eventually, yes. But I do want to keep that 2.25 interest rate. That's like
Yeah.
unheard of nowadays. So
Love it.
yeah.
So that was the fourplex. So now I want to hear about the Galveston property, the next property you bought.
All right, this thing is like something that's just on my shoulder that I cannot get off. It is, as much as I don't want to talk about it, we do have to talk about it, right? Because it's part of my journey, and then we'll get to the reasons why I don't like to talk about it. Well, I mean, to kind of just preface, this is the property that I lost the most money on, which is about $50K. And starting off, right, that's a lot of money, $50K. That would make somebody want to quit, right? But I already quit once for like a month and a half, so I'm never gonna do it again.
Right.
But yeah, let's go into this. So Galveston Beach House, I didn't buy. So this was the second property that I bought, and I bought it right around the same time that I got my realtor license. So I was itching for another property. I was like, it's been way too long. It's been almost a year since we bought our fourplex. I need to buy another one.
You got your realtor license in California, and this property's in Texas.
Exactly.
That you're looking at.
Yeah. So I was like, okay, my money doesn't go, like, the money I have at that time does not go too far in San Diego because I didn't have any more owner occupied loans. I was still on the VA loan, right? So I was like, okay, how can I kind of pivot a little bit so that I can buy another property? Because I was really itching to buy. Like, I really wanted to buy another property. I wanted to add to my portfolio. So I lived in Houston, and I went to high school in Houston for a year. So I was like, okay, I don't want to buy in Houston, but Galveston, I did want to do something with Airbnb, and I want to do the burst strategy. So Galveston is a beach community close by to Houston. It's about an hour and a half away from Houston. And I've been there before. That's where I had my prom party and all that stuff. So I was like, okay, Galveston might be the route to take. We looked at properties online, got a realtor, and settled on this property that we bought for 235K, one of those. The goal was to Airbnb and use the burst strategy for it, right? And we wanted to extend it because we bought it as a 2-bedroom, 1-bath, a little bit over 800 square feet, and we wanted to turn it into a 3-bedroom, 2-bath with 1,300 square feet, right? So our rehab budget at the time was around about 80K. So 230, 80K, we were looking at around 330K out the door, and we were hoping for a 480, 500K appraisal, which would get all our money out, right? In a perfect world, that's what we were thinking about, right? But obviously, what I said before, this was one of the deals that I lost money on, so it didn't go that way. So we recently just sold it, so that was not the plan. It was to Airbnb it and burr it. We recently just sold it early this year in 2023, and that's when we kind of looked at everything and ended up losing 50K. The reason why I think we fell, or why this didn't work out, was, for one, the rehab numbers. We ended up spending double the amount that we thought we were going to spend on it. So instead of spending 80, we almost spent around 150K, right? And it took a year and a half to finish our construction, and we weren't that timeline was not what we talked about, right? So it took us a year and a half.
Hi, it's Alan here from the California Real Estate Investor Podcast. I want to share with you 2 cool free resources. First of all, our Facebook group, California Real Estate Investor. I'll put a link in the show notes. You can connect with us there, share stories, share about what you're doing, where you are in California, and we look forward to that. And then secondly, the website, the CaliforniaRealEstateInvestor.com. I've just uploaded a free mini course about flipping luxury homes. You can download there. If you're flipping homes and you want to make more profit per deal by going higher end with your flips, that's a great resource for you. So check that out. I look forward to connecting with you on the other side.
Yeah. Go ahead.
And here's a picture. I just found the picture of it. If you're watching online, that's the house?
Yep. That's my wife and I looking happy. Little did we know we were going to be in a world of hurt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, awesome. Okay. Yeah. Well, not awesome that you're in a world of hurt, but I love the picture. It's
Yeah.
You look so happy.
Yeah, we look so happy. We just bought another property.
There's like a hurricane on the horizon coming at you in the background, and you're like,
there's something stalking us in the back, like, oh my gosh. But yes, I mean, we were so happy it was our second property. You know, there's this thing in investors, right? In the investor world, where if you buy one property, you're always going to buy a second one. Most of the time, you're going to buy a second one. 95% of the time, you're going to buy a second one. Because it's such an itch, you know, like you want to buy your second property and you're just going to scale up from there. So that's why we were so happy we ended up getting over the hump of buying our second property. So that's kind of where the happiness came from. But then, hey, at the end of the day, I'm still happy, right? But we did, But at the time, looking at the, the settlement statement and doing our numbers, we're like, oh my gosh, well, damn, right?
So. Yep. And so there was, on this transaction, you went out of state. There's all these things that were like firsts for you. It was a first time out of state. It was your first time dealing with this type of a property. The post and pier, is that what they call it?
Yep.
Yeah. So you're taking on a lot of firsts.
Right. So I'm very risk tolerant, and I was like, okay, the numbers checked out, and really in investing and real estate investing, if the numbers check out, everything looks good, right? There's a lot of unforeseen stuff you can't, really tell, but if the numbers, you go off based on numbers, and the numbers look really good, right? But for me, being the risk tolerant person that I am, I kind of turned, and I wanted my second property. I kind of had like rose colored glasses on, right? Because there was already red flags when we were in escrow in this property. Like, for example, when we turned on the water, initially the water wasn't on when we saw it, or when we inspected it at first, or got a home inspection. Yeah. But we ended up turning the water, and the home inspector went out there again, and there was like leaks everywhere, right? So the plumbing wasn't right. And, a normal person would be like, okay, if the plumbing is already not right, then something else might be going in the underlying. But me, like I said, I had rose-colored glasses on. So I was like, okay, it doesn't matter. We're going to fix it. We can still plug this in. We'll just put it into the plumbing or the rehab budget, maybe add another $5-10K and put contingency on it, right? I was like, okay, I'm all about it. It's fine. This is something we can handle. But
that right there was your kind of your caution flag, right?
Yeah.
So it's like you get the water on, the inspector's there, and the water starts spraying out like those mister machines.
Yeah, the mist machines.
And then it's like caution flag, and at that point, you'd want to get like a plumber. You'd want to get the next level of opinion out there to know, okay, well, what is happening right in this situation. Right. But when and we've all been there, you have those rose-colored glasses, and you're like, nah, it'll be fine. We'll just replace the plumbing, or I'll put a line item in the budget.
Sure, exactly.
Yeah,
and that's what it. And the thing with post-superior houses is that you don't have to dig into the foundation, right? So it's like, okay, how much is plumbing really gonna be? You can see the plumbing. You can take out the you can take out a little bit of the wood and then take out the plumbing. So I didn't foresee it costing that much, right? And it wasn't necessarily the plumbing. It was just kind of a red flag to me, like, okay, this might not be. It was kind of foreboding, like this happening, right? And I think where we faltered at in here is, like you said, this is my first time being out of state. This is my first time with this
Yeah.
type of property. And also, this is my first time extending something, like extending a
Right.
house, right? Because we're going from 2 bedroom, 1 bath to a 3 bedroom, 2 bath, right?
Oh,
So
wow.
a combination of all those three, all those things kind of culminated to what happened eventually to the property, right? So my risk
Yeah.
tolerance and my rose-colored glasses was like, nah, I got this. We'll be fine. We're gonna make it happen. Don't worry about it, right? And
Right.
it was just not, it didn't go well. It didn't go according to plan.
Right.
Um, but
Right.
yeah,
Yeah, and you were going into an area where you didn't have a team. So every layer of complication to that renovation, you did not necessarily have a team that you knew you could rely on that could, take care of those things, right?
right,
It's like this is an area where you didn't have a bona fide plumber you've used before or maybe a general contractor or whatever, all the people that you need on that side of the team. So then you're like experimenting with these new people,
yeah.
and I've done that, right? I've done that in 9 different states, and it was just like whenever I had to go in and build a new team, it was a huge risk.
Mm-hmm.
It's like I kind of knew that it would take me 2 or 3 people at least to finally get to the right person that I
Right.
needed on that team. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I get it. But you learned a ton, right?
I did. Yes. So, I mean, learning lessons on here that I, do want to share with everybody. Number one, always have a plan A, plan B, plan C, especially when it comes to contractors, right? So with the
Right.
contractors we had, they gave us the initial bid of 80K for everything, with the extension, with everything, permitting and all that stuff. And I was like, okay, I kind of honestly just took their word for it because there were a huge company in Galveston. They work
Okay.
on these all the time. So I was like, all right, cool, we're good. I trust you guys. We can make it happen. But they ended up leaving us after they finished. After they redid the deck, right? So after they redid the
Oh,
deck, which actually looked like complete crap. Like the screws were
oh,
all
jeez.
not flush. They weren't aligned. They were everywhere. And we were like, okay, we're not going to use you guys again. You guys obviously just did not do this correctly. And on top of that, instead of that 80K bid, they increased it up 40K. So I was like, okay, well, this was not a pleasant experience with you guys, right? And
Right.
we ended up getting another contractor, but their bid ended up being, up to 150K, right? But we were like, you know what? We want to get this done correctly. We can make it work. It's going to be a little tied. We're going to be a little bit tied. You kind of just roll with the punches. We can still make this
Right.
work, and we can still do this. So,
Yeah.
biggest learning lesson: have your contractors, um, like have plans for your contractors, plan A, plan B, plan C, so that if something happens, you have someone you can fall back to. I didn't have that. We lost about a month or two of just interviewing contractors, giving us the bid, kind of talking about the price, things like that. So we lost
Right.
that, kind of attributed to the month or the year and a half rehab time. Second thing, don't have rose colored glasses. All right. Like, I
Right.
know, especially for, I mean, I know this can, advice or whatever can go for, it makes sense for other people as well. But for someone who's buying a first property to a second, I think you'd understand, like, there's such an itch to buying that second property that you're gonna have those rose colored glasses. You're gonna see, or you're gonna kind of ignore the logic and ignore what's going on in front of you just so you can have another property. I didn't listen to that. Like, I just was like, okay, we're gonna go for it. Very risk tolerant. Just do more due diligence and just not, don't look at it for face value. Completely due diligence, and don't take on too much at a time. Because this, like I said, there was a lot of firsts for this. Um, and it was just, I could have just done something where it could have just been out of state first, right? Not necessarily
Right.
posting period, not
Yeah.
an extension. It could have just been a simple cosmetic rehab first. But I shot for the stars, right? And I was just
Right.
like, I'm just gonna go for all this, and didn't work out well. But that definitely a learning lesson for that. Um,
Yeah.
and third, like, as much as much money as I lost from this, like, don't give up. Honestly, like, it's just, I look at it as like a 50K loss, but I look at it as just like, hey, I didn't go to college, so I look at it as like almost like a 50K college degree, right? Like it's a learning experience. It's a real world
Right.
learning experience about business and about real estate, right? So I just had to tweak my mindset a little bit of like, hey, losing 50K, but not necessarily losing 50K. I gained knowledge and I just paid 50K for it. So
Right.
kind of
Right. And that knowledge is going to make you hundreds and hundreds of
exactly.
thousands of dollars,
Exactly. It's
right?
just what's the
Yeah.
ROI for it, right? So
Yeah.
spoken like a
Yeah.
true investor, like what's the ROI for my 50K?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. So that was the Galveston, Texas deal out of state. Now you got your eyes back into San Diego, California, and you're looking at this duplex next, right? And
Yep.
your strategy on this one was the Burr strategy, where you're going to buy, rent or increase the rents,
Yeah.
um, rehab, right, and then refinance.
Yep.
So tell us about this duplex. Give us some of the numbers and walk us through this deal.
Sure. Yeah. So my business partner now, kind of a prologue to the deal. He was in November of 2021. He came to me. He was like, "Hey, just sold my house in Virginia. I know you're an investor. You own a few properties. Can you help me? I want to buy in San Diego. I want to buy our next property." And I was like, "I have 175K. Do you want to use that to buy the next property?" And of course, I'm gonna say yes. I'm like, of course, like let's do it.
Right.
I've always wanted to make the burst strategy work here in San Diego, and this is my perfect opportunity to do that, right? So in our first weekend, had a lot of houses lined up to get shown, and this is one of those houses. This is in our first weekend of showings. This is one of the houses that we've seen, and it was on the MLS. So it was on the MLS, and it was listed for 650K, right? This was the last house we saw out of like 6. But save the best for last. This was on the MLS for 650, and it's been in the market for 70 days, right? And during this time, late 2021, the market was on fire. There's not a lot of houses that stayed in the market for 20 days, let alone 70, like 60, 70 days. So we're trying to figure out like what's wrong with this, like what's going on. And I think it's a combination of things. One, the listing agent didn't market it right. It only had 4 photos, and it only showed the front unit, right? And it wasn't marketed as a duplex. It was a single family home. But we were like, okay, this could be a fixer. This could be a flip that we could look into, right? Potentially, because we were looking at flips as well as bird strap. We went to the property, and I kid you not, I was looking at it. I looked in the back, and I was like, these houses look similar, right? Are they together? Like, are they in the same property? And I called the listing agent while we were at the property walking, and I was like, hey, like, does the 2-story house come with the property? And he was like, yeah, it's a duplex. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is a duplex. Like,
oh yeah, here I got a picture of the that's the 2-story one in the back right there.
The 2-story in the back, exactly. And
yeah,
it wasn't marketed as that, and there was no pictures on the MLS of the back unit. It was literally just the front unit. Looked like a hoarder house. It was, the tenants have been there for 20 years, so they've got really comfortable. But when we walked in the house, there was quartz countertop, new flooring. The only thing we had to do in the front unit is clean it up, put a fresh coat of paint, flooring in the bedrooms because it was carpet at the time. But we didn't have to do anything to the kitchen, the living room, anything like that. It was more so the exterior. We built a fence, right? Because it was chain link, but we wanted to build a legit, fence and just clean up the place, right? So the front unit.
So before you get into the rehab there, again, this is something that I've seen time and time again. What you just described as a property that seemed overpriced and that was sitting on the market.
Yep.
And so everyone was just blowing past this thing.
Yeah.
Because they're just looking at it online. They're looking on their phone. They're looking at the pictures. They're like, single family, it looks like it needs a lot of work. It's priced $650 for that neighborhood is too high.
Yeah.
And they just move past.
Exactly.
But because you dug a little bit deeper and went to the property, you're like, wait a minute, there's 2 homes for the price of one. And on top of that, it's in better shape because they had barely any pictures. Better shape inside than you even thought, right?
Yes, exactly. And like I said, this was also, and the listing agent's fault where it wasn't marketed correctly, right? Because They didn't even put duplex, and we were just looking at it as like, okay, we're gonna go over there. Maybe it's a flip that we can do, right?
Mm.
And yeah, and then it was a really pleasant surprise that it was a duplex, and for the price that it's at, and for the location. Now the location isn't the best, but it's also close to a naval base, right? So we're gonna
Yeah.
get a lot of military tenants.
Right.
It's not too bad. This duplex is literally on the path of progress, and it
Yeah.
should get. Go ahead, Al. What were you gonna say?
No, I was just gonna say, like, a lot of people would look at that, what you've just described, and say, well, you got lucky. And, you know, yeah, okay, it is, maybe there's a little bit of luck there, but how many properties did you look at that day?
There were six.
6, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So 6 properties. And you know what? I would bet to say the more properties you look at, the luckier you'll get, right? It's like,
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. Maybe you got lucky, but you were also putting in the work. You were there looking at each and every one of these properties and digging in deeper. Even though even one seemed overpriced, you were still doing the legwork. And because you did the legwork, you found this when no one else did.
Right. Yeah, and it's
super
just,
hot market.
Yeah, and it's just people just don't want to take in. It's literally, it took us 15-20 minutes of our time to actually go out there, right? And we were looking at houses anyway. So and it's just that thing. The more offers you put, if you put in 100 offers, even if you get one, that's still a win, right? You're not. It's a numbers game at the end of the day, right? The more properties we look at, the more opportunities we're gonna get, right? So that's what we did here. We saw it. We were like, okay, the front unit doesn't need that much work. We could definitely do this, and the back unit didn't need that much work. And actually, no work at all. I don't think we've. What did we put in it? We put backsplash in the kitchen, and had a cleaning lady out there. That was it. So that's really all because the back tenants kept it in such a good condition. And like I said, like we would have never known this because the listing agent didn't put pictures of not let alone the back unit, but inside of the units, right? So it was poorly marketed, but that's kind of where you have to look at. You have to be creative with how your criteria and how you look at property, especially in such a hot market where like it was in 2021. You had to be creative with how you look.
Take us through your numbers on this, your purchase, your renovation, and then where it went from there.
Sure. So it was listed originally at $650, but we got it down. I called the listing agent, negotiated. The magic word when it comes to negotiating is desperate. Hey, my sellers are desperate, right? It's been in the market for 70 days. I was like, perfect. That's I know I can get something off of that, right? Because they said the magic word. So, and word of advice, if you're a realtor or if you're representing someone, don't say desperate ever. Like even if you're a buyer, hey, my buyers are desperate to buy. Don't ever say desperate because someone like me could pick up on that and be like, oh my gosh, like there is some value there that we can that we can put it down, right? Ended up getting it under contract for $600. So we ended up getting it down, $50K under list price in a really hot market, which is really unheard of. So we got it at $600K, rehab and holding costs altogether because we did a hard money loan on it. And a hard money lender is just they give you the money, they go off based off the property and not necessarily your financial picture. So we gave them the numbers, how much it could rent, what the after fair value is, and how much rehab we're putting into it. And they ended up lending us all the money for the purchase price, and we funded the rehab ourselves. And the rehab and holding costs came out to be about $45K. So we were in it for around $645, $650-ish. It's somewhere there. I mean, I need to pull up the spreadsheet to get the exact numbers, but it's close to where that is. And since we're doing a BRRRR strategy, right, the last thing before the repeat is refinance, which is one of the most important steps. I think it is the most important steps with the BRRRR strategy, right? On second to buy, obviously, because you got to buy it at a good price.
Right.
But the refinance, we needed to get it at 830 to get all our money back at 80% LTV. And we ended up appraising when we were refinanced. They got appraised for 850. So
wow.
And what that meant for us is we put about 150K, right? Because we funded the rehab ourselves and the holding costs, and we funded the purchase price. right? Or the down payment for the hard money lender.
Right.
So
Right.
we put about 150K into the deal. And with that 850 valuation, what that means for us is that we just get all our money back of 150K plus, a little bit extra on top if we wanted to utilize that, right? To get more than what we put in.
Right.
And our mortgage was only 3,300, right? And both units were renting out for 24. So at 4,800, net rental or gross rental income and a $3,300 mortgage payment, we're looking at a $1,500 cash flow with no money in. So that's a home run burr in San Diego, and with infinite ROI because we have no money in the deal. So
yeah, exactly. It's an infinite return because you've walked away with all your money back, and you did it in a market where people were like, "This isn't even possible,"
right? Because
you were putting in the legwork, you were out there looking at properties and made it happen. I love that.
Yeah.
All right, so then you did this duplex. You're moving forward, and now you've got a flip lined up. Tell us about this property.
Yes, so actually we're almost done with the flip. I was telling you, Alan, it's gonna take us about a month to turn it around. We're right there. We ended up. So I ended up setting up a marketing system where we have a few cold callers here in San Diego, and I go out. They cold call. They kind of get a gauge of if the seller is trying to sell, and then if they are, then I go out there and close the deal, right? So we ended up getting this property right here that you see on your screen. That it's we got it for $450, and then rehab and the holding costs equate to about $150, and ARV in this area is $850, which actually I was just talking to one of my business partners, and that's minimum now. So because the market's still so hot here, right? There's still no inventory. That the minimum for this. The minimum for this house is $850, so that's the minimum profit that we can get is $250. So, yeah, I mean,
love it.
This was done through cold calling. Like this is what I wanted to set up a marketing system here in San Diego that we can either get flips, burrs, or creative finance deals. And we've only had this marketing system for 2 months until this came across my table, and yeah, just kind of went for it and got it at a good price that worked for us, and we're excited to get this thing done, right? So it's almost done.
Yeah. So when you went into this property, I remember when you were looking at it and you told me this is the one, right, where it just smelled so bad.
Yeah. So the owner, Bob, he was in his early 80s, so he wasn't really keeping up with the place. His story was he had 73 cats at this house at some point. And
wow.
Yeah, 73 cats. One room is literally just for the cats, and it's just 5 or 6 litter boxes, but he wasn't cleaning them. So it was just so much litter and so much cat pee everywhere, and it really just smelled like cat piss, and you can smell it from the driveway if the garage is open. So it was bad, right? It was bad. But as an investor, right, as an experience, I wouldn't say experience, I'm like an intermediate experience investor, but as someone who is looking at this and walking through it, I just smell money, right? Like it's deep down in that lingering smell, but it's in there, right? So because as an investor, you look at it or you smell it and you're like, or as a retail buyer or a first time homeowner, people wouldn't look at this because they'll be like, oh my gosh, like it just smells so bad that I don't even want to deal with it. But as an investor, you look at this, it's only going to cost us a couple grand to get that smell out. It really is. It really is just, you're going to take a couple grand, get the smell out, and after that, you can see and you can smell the money, essentially. So the more I like to say, the more it smells, the more money you're going to make, right? So that's where...
Absolutely.
That's where it was. And then I at this time too, like Bob, super nice guy, still talk to him, still try to help him out as much as I can. The reason he wanted to sell this is because his wife was terminally ill and he had no money for hospice, right?
Oh, wow.
So that was his motivation to sell the house that they were living in, that they built on their own, and to cash out because he said he was tired, right? And you always gotta
This is
find that motivation from the seller.
right.
Yeah.
And this is a situation where he couldn't take this home to the open market, right? It's
No.
like in that sort of condition, and he was living in it, and just all the things going on. This is a sort of property that needed someone who could solve the problems, which was that he needed money fast.
Right.
He needed someone to take on all the risk and all the headaches of turning this around so that it could be, even safe for people to walk through,
Yeah.
and people to see, and take it to the market. So what is your time frame? How long is your renovation on this, and when are you expected to hit the market? Is it like a 3-month turnaround, or?
Yeah. So we closed on this first week of June, right? So it's June 29 now.
Okay.
We closed on this first week of June, or is it second week of June? No, it was second week of June. So we closed on the second week of June, and we are on track to close or to be finished in rehab in the second week of July, and hopefully
Okay.
get it sold by early August. So it's less than
Awesome.
a 3-month turnaround for sure.
Yeah.
So,
Wow. Love
yeah.
it. Love it.
Yeah.
Man, I love just looking through back at your story. I love the way you've used creative financing, because a lot of people will listen and be like, "Well, I don't have 50,000. I don't have 100,000." And neither did you, right?
Yeah.
You started with a zero down deal, and then as you went, you pulled in a private investor. So I'd love to do another interview with you where we dive a bit into that side of things, right? How do people find creative financing? How do they purchase deals with creative financing, meaning using either investors' money or even purchasing subject to, or some of the other
Right.
things that we're looking at, right? Yeah, if you're up for it, I think it'd be really fun to talk about that, and we can share both of our stories. I've bought many properties with creative financing as well. You up for coming back and doing that?
I am definitely down for it. So this is the thing
Okay.
with real estate. I love the creative aspect of it, right?
Yeah.
Not only of the interior designing, right, which is actually my biggest weakness. I say that all the time. I'm not good at interior designing, so I let other people who are better than me do that. And I think I'm creative in making a deal work and finding financing,
Yeah.
because you can be creative in any
Yeah.
other way you can be in real estate, right? As opposed to
Totally.
stocks, it's just buy low, sell high. Real estate, you could be as creative as you can get. A lot of my deals
Yes.
are used by other people's money. The only deal I think I ever have, no, the only deal I know I have money in is the Galveston property, and that's unfortunately the one I lost the most money on. But yeah, all these deals I have no money. I have no money in my own pocket. This flip has no money on me. We're using a private money lender, so
Yeah.
it's just there's so many creative things we can do in real estate, and I would love to talk to you about it and share with the audience how you can do it as well, because it
Yeah.
is easier than what people make it to be, right? Real
Yeah.
estate is super
Yes.
easy. It's just a lot of hard work, right? Does that make sense? Like
Yeah.
it's easy once you're done with it, but
Yes.
it's a lot of hard work. It's a simple process, and it's a simple game, but it takes a
Yeah.
lot of hard work and research and knowledge to get good at it. So
Yeah. Love it. Yeah, I look forward to diving into that. I bought a 48 unit with creative financing.
yeah,
The house I'm in right now in Santa Barbara, California, was bought with creative financing. It's like you can do so much with it and not even use a bank. And so I look forward to diving that in with you. And again, anyone listening, we are extending out. If you want to be mentored by us in real estate, we would love to. Just reach out to James or I, and there'll be contact information on the show notes. Look forward to connecting with everyone listening. And James, thanks so much. I can't wait to go through with this next podcast we're going to do in the future with you.
of course. Thank you for having me, Alan. This was fun. I love talking about this. I love talking about real estate. I love talking to you, Alan. So this was a blast. Looking forward to the next one. And thank you so much for having me.
All right, you got it.
All right.
Talk to everyone soon.
All right. Thanks, Alan.
Hey, thanks for listening to the California Real Estate Investor Podcast. We'd love a review on whatever podcast platform you listen to this on. Also, visit us at thecaliforniarealestateinvestor.com or our Facebook group, The California Real Estate Investor. We look forward to connecting with you and encouraging you on your real estate investing journey.